Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the town. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighbourhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, currently writing her chaos romantic heroine era.
Settle down onto your favourite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the town. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favourite characters. We cover both book, TV series, and notable social media, and therefore will contain spoilers.
Dearest gentle listeners, we're changing up the format today. We want to discuss Pen's interactions with her mother and Colin's interactions with his mother. We're focusing on the mamas and their different approaches and sometimes similar approaches. So let's begin the tale of two mamas. Yeah, I just want to throw out some birthday wishes. Today, Stephanie is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Stephanie.
And she and her family are having a kind of rough day. She might have pneumonia. So I hope when you hear this in the future, Steph, that your x-rays came back good and you didn't have pneumonia. And then Carol's birthday is tomorrow, which for me is Saturday. So I'm hoping, I don't know where Carol's from.
28th or 29th of December.
Yeah. So Carol, I don't know where you're from, but happy birthday. You're hearing this after your birthday occurs anyway. So, but yeah, happy birthday to those two. They were chatting about that in the Polin edits chat. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's awesome because I haven't actually read the Polin chat today. I saw some birthday news pop up, but I have spent the day, as you can see by my sun-kissed skin, that I have spent the day in the botanical gardens with my son, husband, mother, and father.
I love the picture of Stephen and Ezra in that circle thing.
I need to put up a picture. So this is Stephen and his sister in that same brick from when they were little barbers. And so this photo has been a multi-generational photo. And so we take that photo, I think, once in autumn and once in like spring, summer, every single year. And eventually I'm going to do an entire collage of that scene.
Yeah, that is such an adorable.
Yeah, he knows, like, as soon as he sees it, he's picture time, because he knows that we go and take the photo in the same spot every year. But we went to the botanical gardens today. My son got to play on the playground. He then got to have a little paddle in the paddle pool there. My dad got him a speedboat for Christmas, like a little RC speedboat. So he took that into the duck pond. Did the ducks and swans immediately disperse? Yes, they did. They saw us coming and they were like, "No, thank you."
Did you see like on your Facebook post? I was like, yes. Look at those swans.
There were ducks.
It was just a bunch of ducks.
There were ducks.
I didn't see swans at all.
I wasn't sure if you did because there is actually two swans that also live in there. So I was like, oh, maybe I missed the swans because they are there.
Oh no, I was saying the opposite of what was there on purpose.
Yeah. So we did that. We did the RC boats. We watched the sailboats go around. And then we went through a walk through the botanical gardens and the rose gardens. So we had a really lovely day.
So coup of the century, and I'm telling you on here so that I'm really trying to keep it a secret because I almost told him, and I think he thinks it's not happening now because my home situation and my income situation is going to change. But I called the cruise line today and verified, like, they did let me do a reservation for La Petite Chef, which I'm so excited for because he's never done specialty dining on a cruise ever.
Can you explain to me what La Petite Chef is?
La Petite Chef it's modern cuisine. But what they do is they do animation. So your table is mostly white linens, white plate and everything. And then they have a projector that shows, like, it's a 3D hologram type thing. Like you can watch videos of it on YouTube. Okay. And it's like a little dude and his family. and it shows them like gardening and digging up, like if you have a potato soup, they'll like dig up the potatoes, and then you see him chopping it and cutting it and whatever, and the soup appears like animated soup in your plate or whatever, and then they bring that course.
Oh, that's cute.
But there's this little, like this whole little animation going on during your whole meal, where you're watching this little animated little chef and his family, and they have a little dog. Like the videos I've seen, I've wanted to do it so much, but I've never been on Celebrity
Cruise Line. That's really cute.
So I wanted to do that and we're doing it on his birthday. I'm taking him out.
Yeah.
For his birthday.
That's cute.
For this, because he's never done
and he's such a practical person that he
would never spend the money ever on himself, ever.
But then when he has the experience, he goes, oh, I can see why that was worth it. And then it makes them more willing to do those things. My husband, same.
No. He will never, never. He'll never spend that money. There's no reason to, because there is main dining room. There's a buffet. All that's already included in the price. Like he's called Smaug for a reason. Like,
my goodness.
And it's not that he wants to hoard it, like not like that, but for him, it really is like he cannot. The experience isn't enough for him to wrap his head around spending that money when he could just go to main dining room.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, it's worth it to me because of the animation and stuff. Like, I really don't even care about the food. I want the entertainment, and I'm paying the money for the entertainment.
I want the experience.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Take 2. Now we must make haste into today's episode.
And so I'm just going to point out that our episodes jump anyway because of tangents, but this one will naturally jump because we're going to be like going back and forth in the episode for the interactions between the children and the mamas, because we're trying to understand how the mamas handle some things similarly. Like if they were each in the different circumstances of the other, they probably would have made some of the same choices, but also how different they are in their approach with their children.
One is filled with nothing but love for her child, and her nothing but the desire for her child to be happy. And then the other one is filled with protection for their child and a desire nothing more than for her child to be provided for physically, not emotionally.
And also herself provided for, let's be real.
But what I'm saying, I do think that at the core, the goal is both for their children to succeed in their eyes, and for Violet, succeeding is finding love and having a life full of love. And for Portia, who's known no differently, her version of succeeding is the most advantageous. So where we left off in the last episode was Colin stumbling home drunk and wrapping himself up in a Penelope blankie. And then the next scene cuts to the Featherington house meeting. The 2 conversations that we're going to be jumping between today is basically Lord Debling's meeting with Portia, where he asked for permission to marry her, and basically Portia and Penelope's breakdown gossip session we'll go with of it all.
It was literally it was a summit meeting about the pros and cons of this, because it is basically Portia interviewed him, and then brought her thoughts on the interview and the candidate to, the CEO of this marriage, because she was going to be the bride.
Right. What you mean, Portia? But Portia's like, I'll marry you. Wouldn't that be the coup of the century if Portia ends up marrying him?
And I honestly think
I'd be here for it. I'd be here for it.
Yeah. I think that's what we missed in the second half. I know Portia, seeing that her daughter is going to marry advantageously, but also learning and realizing that she has a legitimate
and I actually would not put it past Debling to marry someone like Portia anyway. He's like, look, as long as you provide me a kid, she'll be right.
But that's what I'm saying. And he wouldn't choose Portia because she's of the age where she couldn't.
Yeah.
She's definitely menopausal.
What a bird. What a bob.
Well, her attitude, you like, it's obvious she's menopausal. So she's in her I don't give a shit era.
Yes.
But yeah, like I think that would have been funny if after he's interacted with Portia several times and he realizes just how cunning and cutthroat she is, if he would have, left Penn, licked his wounds a little bit because his pride was injured, and then showed up at the Featheringtons' door like, you're a widow, right?
Yeah. So, and then the other conversation that we will be doing kind of like a juxtaposition like between the two conversations is Colin and Violet, where Violet gives a very much needed kick up the caboose to say, hey, you're about to lose the girl. Get your armor
and
off.
Get your act
into gear.
I'm probably going to reference where she comes and talks to him in the study as well.
Yes.
Because I think there's some great juxtaposition in their approach there as well. Like, and I'll probably talk about her with Francesca also in terms of how they handled their kids on the Marriage Mart, because there's distinct similarities and distinct differences.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump on and discussing our least favorite match of them all. The scene cuts to Penelope standing outside of her mother's office, waiting for news of Debling and Portia's meeting to discuss his proposal request. Penelope is shown in the mirror, and I'm like, always the mirrors. The mirrors, like, well, my first few rewatches, there were some very, very pivotal scenes that were in mirrors. But if you actually watch, most of the scenes have mirrors in them, and they are basically flipping, what is happening. And, on the surface, it shows a young girl waiting outside, Pride and Prejudice style, like, will daddy say yes? And I'll get my happily ever after. But you can tell that Penelope is not actually happy about this. It is filled with anxious energy, but none of that is happy.
No, she looks like, she looks like dead man walking.
You know what it looks like? It looks like I'm doing what is expected of me, but if she says yes, I'm giving up on my dream of Colin. And
dead man
look
walking.
Like a little
because I'm leaning back.
Yes. Sorry, for those who can't see on the camera screen, Patty leaned all the way back, so all I could see was just like a floating Drell head.
My glasses sticking out over the...
Well, I'm sure enough people have seen like original Superman to know what the floating Drell head reference. Hopefully. Yeah, I don't think there's many people out there that have like as much varied geeky fandoms as I do.
No, I got geeky. Anna of Green Gables right there.
Yeah.
There's some Bridgerton content in my base.
Well, actually, now that you mentioned
and if you count the beach, special interest, the beach. Love the beach.
The book?
Love the water.
The actual beach.
The actual beach.
Not the Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sand, water, give me. That's my nature. That's how I reconnect nature.
On my bookshelf, I have a dedicated Harry Potter section. And I'm actually wondering whether now that I've got 2 of my 4 Bridgerton books that Stephen ordered me for Christmas, the specialty 2-in-1 books, I'm actually not a big fan of the color choices that they have chosen. For Bridgerton, that is...
Featherington.
Bridgerton is all pastel. Why would you then change that to be watermelon color? Green
because
and pink
it's Featherington. It's Featherington coded because it was the special editions came out with season 3, and as we know, Shondaland has treated that like Penelope season, not Penelope and Colin season.
Yeah, but like book 1 and 2 is Daphne and Anthony, which are not watermelon kids. Like
watermelon kids.
Like, come on. They're obnoxious colors. I mean, the books are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I think that they are stunning. And I'm going to hopefully make up a whole, like, I want to order some wisteria and like have it on my bookshelf, like display them all cute and such. But like,
yeah, I put my dried carnations up from my flowers I bought myself. They're in my thing, and like all of my books in my honeycomb shelf, they're all like, I have my Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants set together, my Twilight set together, my Anna Green Gables set together, and then all of my books where I have individual books, I have those separated by fiction and nonfiction. And then I have the fiction ones separated by female writer and male writer. Tell me that isn't tism.
I've got Harry Potter at the top because I've got the always signs from my wedding. I then have all of my what do you call them, illustrated copies, and then all my regular copies from my child. And then underneath that, next to that I've got my Doctor Who like TARDISes, and then some bobbleheads from some animes that Steve and I really like, and then
Oh,
I've got a Dumbledore
have
in
you
there as
watched
well.
the Doctor Who special yet?
I
The
have
Christmas
not. With
special?
what time, Patty? And then
I know, but I wanted to talk.
I've got my manga sets. And then I've got various books that I was actually going to give away. And then it goes in sets of like different authors, but in color coded theme. I need things to be like the right kind of size, the height. I hate when my books go high, low, high, low, high, low. So it goes in color scheme slash genre scheme together and then in height.
Yeah, I have mine in height.
But yeah, very geeky theme. But yeah, I do want to make up a whole Bridgerton shelf on my bookshelf, which I think it would be cute. Let's skip back to Penelope in the mirror. So Dublin comes out of the office and he gives no indication of how the meeting went.
It's the drawing room.
It's the drawing room, sorry. So he gives no smile, no glee, no hop, skip, or swagger in his step. He just says, Miss Featherington, and bows her goodbye.
And stalks off.
Like there's no like we're going to be husband and wife. There's no like little like grabbing of the hands and like
there's not even a moment of triumph on his part.
Yeah, like not like a shy smile, like we're going to be husband and wife. There's no like it was the most lackluster moment I think I've ever watched.
It was straight up a business transaction. It almost makes me wonder if it's similar to what Portia went through to get
Archibald
Prudence married off to Dankworth.
Oh no, I think Denky he'd be like, I'm gonna have a wife.
Yes, but I think as effeminate as Dankworth
it would have been the parents.
His parents would have handled it. And I bet you he didn't even meet Prudence until the wedding day. Like it was all arranged because of what happened with Prudence and Jack and how her reputation would be.
Yeah.
So I think that it was arranged and the parents got together and made the decision. And I just think Dankworth was pleasantly surprised on his wedding day.
I think they would have met after
at a dinner or something, maybe.
Yeah, after the engagement had been like solidified and all the paperwork signed and everything, but pre-wedding.
But yeah, this was, and my whole thing, one, we know Colin loves Penelope like nobody's business and forever and deep. But when he's standing there, like when he makes the decision that he's going to announce it that night, you see a look of triumph on his face.
Mm-hmm.
After the mirror scene in the carriage,
and she can't figure out that look because she's already experienced sibling who gave her zilch.
Nothing.
And he changes his entire appearance when, like he starts straightening her up and she's like, what are you doing? And he
just looks at her and he's like, he just nods his head like, look of triumph. In the carriage after the marriage scene, look of triumph. And the look on his face after they're married and he's standing there holding her hand in front of God and country, he's like, I got my girl.
We need to save this content.
I know, but I'm saying like those are my examples. That's what Debling was supposed to look like. Yeah. But Debling looked almost as foreboding, like this was going to be a bad thing. Like
it was the same look on his face it was the same look he had on his face when he's picking out the vegetables or when he was looking upon the things mounted on the wall. The deer mounted on the wall. There was no expression that was like, oh, is that okay? Yeah. Like there was
like, I don't understand how, like when you watch the press tour, like, okay, Sam Phillips, you're a good actor, but come on, everybody's like, Lord Debling is such a nice guy. And he was so, I didn't read nice ever because like he should have at least a small smile, come out with a small smile, like,
because imagine how
and he said it so harsh too. He didn't even say it in a sweet way.
It sounded like an admonishment. An admonishment.
Yeah, it sounded like that guy. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? The colonel that like shoots off the cannon.
You're gonna be upset with me. I only watched it last year and I hated it.
Okay.
I thought she was a terrible Well, keep in mind that I'm watching
Julie Andrews? You watch?
Yeah, Julie. And it was in like black and white in parts and when they went into the,
it was in
the weird world thingy.
It was in color and then it was in Technicolor, like cartoony stuff.
Yeah.
In the chalk.
Yeah.
But you remember the colonel guy that shot off the cannon. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole disappointment in you, so we'll just move on. But okay,
keep in mind that
there will be a day that there comes a movie that is pivotal to me that you're going to be like, oh yeah, I saw that.
keep in mind that I'm watching from a
What were you
2024
just doing?
popcorn.
Oh, I was like, are you going off screen to make faces at me?
No, popcorn.
But that Colonel guy who's like,
Yes, that
you
Colonel.
know, ha ha ha. But he like, when he's talking to his assistant or I think a home health aide, whatever that
Yeah,
person is that helps him get the cannon
yeah,
set up
yeah,
to shoot it off, like the way he talks to them, that's how Debling was. Like
yeah,
he's giving orders on the ship.
yeah, yeah. Just keep in mind that I watched Mary Poppins from a 2024 perspective of a teacher and the way that I like my student to be raised. And it was just that really short, curt, dismissive, children are dumb and we need to teach them how to be smart. And the only way they can be smart is if they do what we say, like do what I say because I said it, not, it was just,
But that's very
wasn't
much
my
like
vibe. It was a
that's
product of
my
its time.
generation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my whole generation. We watched these, like my generation is the last one that actually had kids where kids were underestimated.
Yeah.
But parents still, it acknowledged him working so hard and not giving his kids enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you go later, when you start getting into television like Roseanne and especially when Nickelodeon started all the Nickelodeon shows and parents are just nowhere to be found. Like it's like kids are smart and kids can do all this stuff and parents are dumb. I didn't like that plot twist for a long while, but like the age I grew up, it's like it wasn't that, it was definitely, there was a lot of that mindset of children should be seen and not heard, and children had to be a good parent, your kids had to be compliant, and that's really what I grew up with. Like that was my parent.
My child
that
has
was
to
my
be
parents.
respectful, but I also hold age appropriate expectations for him. And when those expectations aren't met, it is met with a boundary, not a consequence,
I grew up in the land of, I think
I think you grew up in the land of the strap, which is what my parents grew up in the land of. The consequence was always, some
you got punished for any big feelings, anytime you couldn't control yourself. You got punished. It was considered being bad.
Well, and we can even see how feelings are not really accepted in the Bridgerton universe at
no.
Which is probably why Dibling skirts past so well, because no one's ever going to accuse him of having big feelings.
No, he has for somebody who is supposedly so passionate about saving something and so passionate about nature, he doesn't come off as passionate at all.
No.
He just talks about it a lot. I mean, and really people do get vilified for their big feeling whenever feelings get so big and they go outside the norm, for sure.
But in this scene, I think that Devlin's reaction literally threw Penelope for such a loop that she thought that her mum had said no, because she hustles into the room looking all confused, thinking that maybe Portia had denied. And when Portia tells Pen, of course she said yes, and she's filled with glee at the advantageous match that she has made for herself. Like
for herself,
Penelope's
not
like
her daughter.
Yeah. It is for herself.
But here's what I took when I realized what the conversation was after he left, how I took that whole thing, and he looked just as dead man walking as Penn did. I think he didn't realize that Portia was part of the package. Like Colin doesn't treat Portia as part of the package ever. Debling never, like the way he is with his family, he chose someone else who didn't seem close with their family.
Yes.
Who would do his bidding. Like he chose someone he thought would be malleable but strong enough to stand up to his family. He thought he'd pick the perfect Fern who would not need very much attention.
And then he whether realized his mother is like Portia, and that's why he realized can't stand her.
Portia's part of the package, and Portia is a gold digger.
I don't think it's the gold diggering part that he cares about. I think it's the strong opinions, it's not the gold digging, it's the way she goes about it.
Portia still wanted control of the estate, and she wanted a daughter that she would be able to manipulate the most, and that's why she chose Prudence.
This is one of the few times that Portia ever shows Penelope any form of approval, which it's not even her approval. It is Debling's approval, because then she starts listing off the wealth, how many caracals, and how due to his travel, Penn, and by extension Portia, will have so much power within the ton. And this is
I just want to point out
cause of Portia's happiness, the social climbing. It's got nothing to do with it either.
In my notes that I took back in, when did I do this? Like late June, like after we started the pod, and I watched through and was doing my first initial notes. I said the look on Penelope's face when Portia says you will get to manage his estate after she just heard how big his estate is, and she is just like, this is not what I want.
This is
And you
not
can
what I
just
signed
see
up
it like,
for.
ugh. And then she realizes, because Portia keeps talking, that Portia doesn't really plan on her running it. Portia's gonna run it. Portia's whole idea is that she is going to benefit.
Penelope
She
is a
is going
creative
to get
type,
to.
a creative and emotional type. And the thought of being stuck behind a desk every day and doing what Kate does is probably Penelope's idea of hell. I actually think that the likes of like a Hyacinth and an Eloise would do much, much better at those kinds of things. But I think the running of a household, as in like the running of staff and the running of balls and, you know, maintaining a certain status, that is Eloise's idea of hell. But I think that analytical side of it, she'd be like, yeah, I can do this, you know, eyes closed.
I think Eloise would be great at the ledgers and the books and the business.
The
She
analytical
wouldn't
side.
want to do the societal functions. I think that Penelope would do really well coming up with like the ideas, the themes and things for balls, and probably all of the piecing together. Plus we already know the kind of ball Varley can put together, and Penn will just shove money at her. But like Penelope comes off very Danbury in that instance.
Oh,
But
I want to do
I
meetings
think like
on what kind of ball she'll throw.
if it comes down to them throwing a ball,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we saw Kate doing at Bridgerton House, where she's introducing, like she's the hostess and everything, that would be Colin. It would not be Penn. It would be Colin, because Colin can mask. Colin can put the mask on and he can play that role. Penn will be like, no.
But
maybe on his arm, but she's still not going to be like.
I think, what if like Colin, Penn, Sophie, and Benedict kind of team up, and it's not necessarily a ball, it's kind of more like the Queen's Ball, how it was a ballet going into a ball. I wonder if they do something that is more arts inspired, sort of like Aunt Josephine, how she has, you know, people from who are kind of outcast in society or artsy in society, and she creates an entire ball like inspired by these. But I would love that, and I could totally.
Well, and I think they might do that to introduce Benedict's art.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it could be like, because we already know the Featherington Gardens. Remember that one house where they used that? They're using it again for the gardens. Like maybe they do a garden party, and indoor, outdoor, and his art is in, you know, the ballroom and whatever. They like put it up gallery style, but there's like, you know, kind of like the garden party at the beginning of season 3, but there's the indoor element of seeing the art there. But I still think Penn would not be the one going around to people and being chatty at all.
So it is now that Penelope reminds Portia that she has not agreed to marry him, and Portia bites back. But of course you will. Portia cannot fathom a world in which, and the fact that the first thought that she has is she thinks that Penelope is being greedy. What else could you want? She's like, do you want a duke or a prince? Like, I love that her first thought is that Penelope thinks it's not advantageous enough. It is the largest house in Mayfair.
Yeah.
And Portia's like, God, this girl has really inherited my drive. Like, she wants more than this. Be realistic, Penelope. Like, it doesn't even occur to her that it could be about feeling, which is
until she sees Penn's,
which is the complete
Penn won't
opposite.
even meet her eyes.
No.
Yeah.
So let's jump now into the conversation between Colin and Violet, because I think talking about one parent who can't even fathom that feelings are of consequence, and then you've got another mother who feelings is all that matters. All that matters.
And it's a complete juxtaposition, because Penelope wants more and she means feelings, and Portia is like, but it's advantageous, it's all this money and everything. And Colin is the one in their interaction that's like, but she's getting all this money and security, and like, what do I have to offer her, kind of thing, even though that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
And his mother is like, she wants the guy under the armor, you know.
Yeah. So, like, to set the scene, Colin and Violet, the conversation. So, we're not doing this in actual order. Like, I'll try to keep the actual chats in somewhat order, but obviously it's going to be, the mother's chat will be somewhat in chronological order, and then, Penelope and Portia's chat will be in somewhat in chronological order, and then Colin and Violet's, but we will jump between them.
Back and forth.
So, it cuts to Bridgerton's
That was my
house.
disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah. I still need to keep some level of structure because otherwise my brain just
Oh, you're telling
malfunctions.
yourself. Okay.
Otherwise my brain just
Like,
malfunctions.
I was telling everyone else that exact same thing. Like, this is gonna seem different.
Yeah. So it cuts to the Bridgerton house where the Bridgertons are all coming down the stairs and Violet questions why Colin is not dressed for the ball. He says he would like to stay home tonight. I love that he is such a gentleman that it was not a statement. It was a request, mother. I would like to stay home tonight. He
I
wasn't
know.
telling her. It was
He's
mummy.
23 years
Mummy,
old.
mummy, I don't feel well. Mummy, my
Yeah,
heart hurt. I can't go out
yeah.
tonight.
He's
It was
23
such,
years old and he's asking permission to not
mummy.
have to go.
Mummy, it
I love
hurts.
that.
It was,
Yeah, mommy, I want
I,
to stay with my security blankie.
yeah. And Violet and her lady's maid both look to each other and step forward to talk to him. I kind of love that we've got the juxtaposition between the mothers who are complete opposites, but the relationship between the ladies' maids, the mothers' ladies' maids,
The
and
housekeeper,
the
yeah.
housekeeper, sorry, and the children is actually quite similar. Like on the opposite scales, they're actually quite similar. They have both been there. Like they are both the staff that are probably the longest standing in the household, and they have watched those children be raised. So they are like second mothers to these children. So I like that it's kind of like both sides of his mothers, like Violet and his lady's maid, step forward to check in with him. I just thought that was kind of like sweet that it wasn't like a you're a servant. What do you think you're doing, like coming up with me? It was let's tackle this boy together, you know?
Well, and especially for Colin, because of the age he was when his father died, Mrs. Wilson would have stepped
Mm,
in to help a lot more than she would have if he would have been 12 with two
yeah.
parent. Because now as a housekeeper, she was very much a part of their day to day and watched the kids grow up. But she really did. I mean, you can see how Violet relied on her,
Yeah.
and she was not just housekeeper, she was also friend.
Yeah.
Like the look she gives her when she comes in and says Lord Anderson has come to call, like you can tell she wants to be like,
Like,
you
and
know,
I kind of love that relationship between
Mrs. Wilson, I think
Mrs.
Kate called
Wilson,
her.
Barley, and also Coral. We have these ladies who are servants, yes, but you can really,
And Ray, let's not forget
sorry,
Ride or Die now.
sorry, and Ray, because she is now she's stepped up her game. But I do love that the relationships between them are more friendships, more like almost sisterhood rather than you are my servant, you will do what I say. And I think that really tells you a lot about the relationships that actually, whereas Coral must be dead. She would have never left. That's a sad
Danbury.
realization because she looked younger than Danbury. Not by a lot, but in Queen Charlotte, she looked slightly younger than
Yeah, but
Danbury.
I would say honestly, we don't know because we do not see
She'd be around, what?
you know what our theory is, right?
Yeah.
And we know that she was not raised by Lady Kent. That was just a distant relative. What if she ended up being raised by Coral? Coral is that kind of ride or die, though.
She is. And she would keep that secret. Because she
Oh
knew
my
about him
gosh.
too. She knew about him. Like, it was never explicitly
Shondaland,
talked about.
Netflix, are you listening to this? Is this your plan? Because it's a good one.
That's huge, actually. That's a really good fan theory. Backed up.
I mean, she's completely gone.
Yes.
That we know. We haven't really seen Danbury in her room, though, to see her lady's maid.
I think
And she definitely has
with
more status and money.
With how important Coral was in Queen Charlotte, I do not think for a second that they wouldn't have been jumping between her relationship with Coral as an adult unless she was either dead or somewhere important. There is no breaking that relationship. It was ride or die.
And she did those baths after the
Yes.
encounters with Lord Danbury because that was to prevent her from becoming pregnant.
Yeah.
And she said, I mean, yes, she felt dirty, but it was also to keep her from getting pregnant because there's certain things you can do with a very hot bath.
Hot bath. Yeah.
Right after intercourse. But she also, and she would always say, oh, do you think he's put another one of his children inside of me? Like that tells you that she's a fertile myrtle pretty much.
Yeah.
So her encounter with Lord Ledger could have produced a child. And we have a theory about why she liked Alice Mondra.
Okay, that's actually whew, that was a big one. Now my brain is just turned to mush.
Fire into night.
My brains are mush after that. Yeah, so
Well, and I just want to say, I mean, we look at if we go back to the mamas, we look at have two mamas that they parent with their housekeeper. Varley is Penelope champion. You see how I mean,
yeah,
she's the only one that actually exhibits any kind of pride in Penelope ever.
yeah.
Until Debling, and then until she realizes that Penelope did not
And
entrap
you know what?
Colin, that that's
We
actually
never
love.
see Barley's perspective of dabbling, like as in like we never see her encouraging, oh, well done, miss, on such an advantageous marriage. You know, we don't get that.
No, because Varley knows. Varley
Hmm.
knows that she's crushing on Colin and always has.
Varley's
Like
probably
you
the
can
one who
tell
brings the letters. Do you
her
honestly?
look. Oh yeah, true.
Varley would have
True.
been the one to bring her the letters.
And
And she would
the
have
look
said,
on her face
Another letter
when
from Mr. Bridgerton, ma'am, or miss.
but
That's what it
that
would have
and that
been.
also yeah, and that all says a lot too because Portia had no idea that he was writing her back. They thought that Penelope was writing to him
Yes.
like it was a pipe dream. Not that she was actually sending them, but more like she
Hmm.
was journaling
Yeah.
to him, but not that he
I
was
think
responding. So if Varley
Varley
kept that
knows
a secret,
everything that happens in that house.
yeah. But the look on her face when he gives Portia the dressing down, she's not that whole look on her face is not about, ooh, look who stood up to Portia. It is look what my girl got. My girl
Yeah.
got her man. My girl got her man.
It's
That's
just
what she's
proud.
like. She
She's
wants to be
proud.
proud and she can't be because Portia's mad and
Yeah.
she's playing that line between I got to react to this, but oh, Milady is having problems.
Milady. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Because
um,
Portia probably, I mean, we didn't see it, but Portia probably was like, "Our all of our prayers are answered. We're gonna be
but
saved.
do you
Penelope's
notice
gonna marry Debling."
the difference is Mrs. Wilson, I think, isn't as close with, we don't see her having one-to-ones with the children because Violet was such a active participant in raising her children that her children would have had less interaction with their housekeeper or even the children's ladies' maids or whatever because the interaction that Violet, but I
But
do wonder whether those
that's why
younger
I think that
children,
she walked up with Violet because Violet checked out.
yeah.
And Daphne and Colin would have had to step up because Antony and Benedict were off at school.
But
So
that's what I
the
was about to say.
true
I wonder whether Hyacinth and Gregory have a much closer relationship with her because they were born in those really formidable years where their mother had checked out and they would have had to actually relied on a housekeeper more than the older
But
children.
I think that Mrs. Wilson would have seen that Colin and Daphne, because the whole reason that Daphne wants that family and wants to become a mother is because she experienced that while her mother was in her depression.
Yeah.
And Colin's purpose is to have a family of his own because he stepped in the father role to those little kids. And you can see how Hyacinth and Gregory interact with him.
He's very paternal.
Yes, they everybody thinks because Antony is the Lord that, and yes, he has a close relationship with Hyacinth, that they assume that he was her dad. But I
Mhm.
posit that her first dad was Colin and her first mom was
Well, and
Daphne.
we even
That
see
they
he admits in the first season, second and first season, I can't
second
recall.
season, like he was absent from so much.
He was absent from so much,
He
and
was
Gregory
late.
missed out on having a dad because of that. Like, he could have been that dad to Gregory, but he didn't. He wasn't. He was too busy
Yeah.
trying to be something that he thought he should be, or trying to avoid responsibility, or whatever it
Yeah, and
was.
he's an avoider. He's been avoidant. I think Colin jumped right in because he's that people pleaser, helper, put other people first.
Hmm.
He wanted to help his mother. He jumped in. Daphne jumped in because as the oldest daughters, that's what we do.
Well,
And then
You know what I've just
I
realized
think
about the scene?
Mrs. Wilson would have supported them and treated them like they were the Lord and Lady and they were her employers because she knew that her mistress was down and out,
Well, you
right?
know what I've just realized in this scene, Colin gets so much flack for when his mother says, you've given so much, like making other people happy, you always put yourself second. And then I saw so many comments on the internet being like, what do you mean put himself second? Dude's been off living his best life, like traveling the world without a care. And yet we don't see the same comments about Anthony. Anthony was supposed to take over as head of that household. He did not. He did one season with his sister where he really screwed the pooch, and nearly got her married off to Nigel Burbrook. What an embarrassment for that family it would have been. And then he marries Kate and he buggers off and he ditches all his responsibility onto his siblings yet again. And I'm not saying that he's done wrong. I'm sure that he has had a lot more responsibility on his shoulders, but I don't think it's actually physical responsibility. I think it was self-imposed responsibility that he put on his shoulders. Kate actually took responsibility. She had to raise her sister because her mother was in her depression. Benedict did not take on the raising of those children. It is clear from the conversation that he has with Gregory that is not what that's not what happened. So
Anthony, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, but I mean the conversation that he has with Gregory. That's not what happened. So it's like Kate took on the responsibility, and so she's saying, "Hey, I don't want to, like, I love your family, but I don't want to take on the responsibility of being Mrs. Bridgerton."
But Anthony is just doing the same stuff he's always done. He just now has an accomplice.
Yes.
And I mean, he gave himself self-imposed responsibility. Like, he talked about it. He martyred himself, but he really didn't, because you can tell. And Benedict also is like, he wants to come off as the ne'er-do-well. I honestly don't think, I think it was easier for him to be off at school and deal with his grief over his father separately. And he's more of the runaway type. Like, Anthony is the, I've got to do it. I've got to make it look good, but I don't want to do it. He's resentful. And Benedict is like, peace out, Girl Scout. I can't do this. I want to have fun. And so actually that left Colin to do the actual real work. At a very young age, he became a parentified child.
Yes.
And Daphne was a parentified child because she's the oldest daughter. So they were actually doing the raising and the parenting and all of that stuff. And I think Mrs. Wilson supported them. I don't think she actually did the parenting of the children. She stepped in where a 12 and 10-year-old or 12 and 11-year-old would have been lacking. So, but I think that's why she's so invested in Colin, that she walks up with Violet, because this is her boy. This is, and Colin, like, he's everybody's baby. I mean, even Kate is caressing his face by season. So, like, he's just so charming that everybody just wants to cuddle him.
I have my little cousin who was here over the weekend, well, for 4 days over Christmas. He's 17, but he is 100% a Colin. He is honestly the most gentle-spirited 17-year-old you will ever meet. Like, he is charming and charismatic, but he is so soft and gentle that you would never expect from, like, people, who have certain looks, kind of expect them to be arrogant or a certain way. When you've grown up looking a certain way and having a certain amount of affluence, you expect a certain behavior to go with it. But no, he is the most down-to-earth, sweetest, like, will still come and give me, like, big hugs and cuddles and, like, have the most deep meaning. Like, I love people who don't let genders or societal expectations, and they're just genuinely themselves,
Yeah. Authenticity is the most attractive trait there is.
Not that I'm saying that I'm attracted to a young cousin.
Well, no, but you understand that he is attractive to somebody out there, probably multiple somebodies. You can say, like, like my nephew. Like, I never questioned. Like, I can say my nephew's a good looking kid, and I mean, his wife is beautiful. And why is she the most beautiful pregnant one? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there like, oh, my ankles are starting to swell. I'm like, you literally look like a magazine. What are you talking about?
I think it's when you have people in your life and you're like, I know that you are going to, because I think at one point in time it was like, oh, you're going to make an excellent husband one day. I no longer have that desire or wish for the people that I love. No. I know that you are going to fill people's lives with happiness and love one day. Doesn't care in what form. Doesn't matter, as a friend, as a colleague, as a loved one, as a partner. Don't care. You are going to fill people's life with love because you are a genuine, kind soul. And that's, And then I've got his brother, who's the complete opposite. He's the, like, chaos king, and he is running around like a madman with my son, and they get on, like, he's 14 years old, and, like, the best thing that he could have done in his entire holiday was, like, all he wanted to do was, like, I'm going to get down to Christchurch and I'm going to play with Ezra, like my little 3-year-old, and I've got so many pictures and videos of them. It was the boy who was kayaking with Ezra.
Kayaking, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it takes a really beautiful spirit to be that age and not be interested in, oh, I just want to sit on my phone and talk with my friends. I want to be on TikTok. No, I want to play with my little baby cousin, and that's so adorable to
That's
me.
awesome. Yeah.
That's the Colin vibes as well. Like,
and that's Colin. I mean, that's
yeah.
that's Luke Newton. Like, there's so many things out on the interwebs and TikTok and stuff. Like, if he's even next to a baby, he's just like, I saw a TikTok where his one friend that he's saying yellow with is holding a baby, and he's like all about the baby.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Nicola is too. She's a sucker for cute bubs. All right, so
yeah, I can't wait to see them with their own little Lord Trowbridge with the Lord Featherington. I know, but I still want him to be redheaded.
I know. All right, so Violet states that Colin looks unwell and questions whether it was Colin returning home drunk last night whilst trying to feel his forehead. Get off me, Mom. Get off. Get off.
I know, he does that. Oh,
it is,
like the 5-year-old, like, I'm too big for kisses on the cheek.
Yeah, it is like the evasive maneuver of a child. And he's being a little
I'm not a baby, Mom.
Yeah. Stop babying me. I just want to go and cuddle my blankie, but it's fine.
No, he's marrying someone else, Mom.
And, in this moment, we get the most disrespect that we ever see him kind of give to Violet as he raises his voice defiantly and says, I am well, realizing at one, like, that was rude, and he drops his tone. But I was like, wow, bit of petulance going on there, Colin.
And that's the thing, when he tries to sound like a man, like, it just comes off sounding like a petulant child.
It does. Because it's just not his character at all. And it's, again, trying to put on a facade of someone else, or trying to put on that armor. And it just,
and this is where Mrs. Wilson exits, because she's like, oh, this is definitely just a mother-son moment. Yeah. I'm gonna bounce.
Yeah. Violet's maid takes the hint and makes herself scarce that Violet might talk with him quite frankly. And she does, but she also does it in such a sensitive way. So let's,
well, and I love that she gives a metaphor, like she speaks in parables, and that's that's kind of how Violet is. She speaks in parables, and she knows that her children are smart enough, and she gives them the space to come to their own decisions. She really just wants to guide them. And so she gives them, like, we all saw it for what it was. It was a kick in the pants. Like, what are you doing? You want this girl. You love this girl. Why are you not making your move?
But she knows that you know what this reminds me of? My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where the mother is like, oh, I think it could have even been like Auntie Vula. And she's like, I don't tell my husband what to do. I lead him to the answer and make him think that it was his conclusion all along. But realistically, it's exactly what I wanted him to do. Everything is just a product of my creation and manipulation to get them to do what I want.
She says, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. She turns the head whichever way she wants.
Yes. It's exactly it. And I feel like that's kind of...
and I love that. Go ahead, sorry.
I feel like it's kind of what Violet does. She knows that if she told her sons what to do, they would be defiant for defiance sake. But if
she already did that with Anthony.
Yes.
Like, she was very direct with Anthony, and it didn't go the way she wanted.
No.
So she has softened her approach with the boys, and I think she completely gave up on Benedict, much like she's completely given up on Eloise.
I think we will see that change next.
I think so too, but if you remember from the book, like, the way she talks to Benedict is very not direct, and but
the whole reason
that it's going to play similarly.
The whole reason she took Sophie on in the first place is because she knew there was something immediately off the bat.
Oh yeah, she clocked it,
and she
just figured if they were in proximity, it would grow.
Yeah.
Very similarly, I think she probably saw feelings, because she always wanted Colin to marry Penelope in the book. So I think she saw those feelings early on, and she encouraged the friendship between Eloise and Penelope, and encouraged Penelope to come to their house, knowing Colin couldn't go over there.
Yeah.
That she encouraged that by proximity. And I think, like, what I love here is, if, comparing the two mamas in this case, they are both seeking an outcome from their children, but you literally have one railroading her child. Like, she flat out says, if you can't be smart, I will
Will
be
be
for
smart for
you.
you. Should we jump back up for a moment up to Portia and Penelope? Because this is the
Yeah, I
point.
mean, we're because this is going to go back and forth
Yeah.
because Violet definitely has an outcome. You can tell when their engagement is announced, like that is what she wanted. But she cajoles in a way, like, and Antony kind of says something to her like, you could try just, being direct with your
Well,
children.
you've got
Like
one
you did
mother
it to
who,
me.
you've got one mother who sees everything that is happening and she is
Mm-hmm.
trying to gently guide her child down to make the right choice. And then you've got Portia who Penelope is like listing off all these good characteristics of Dibbling and why he'd make a suitable match, but her heart is not in it. And for anyone who knows Penelope, like we've only watched 3 seasons of Penelope, but realistically, we shouldn't know her to her core the way that her mother is. Any mother out there should pick her heart's not in it. She doesn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Violet
Well,
would
and I
pick this
think
from a mile away.
but I think that this is the moment that Portia realizes, like, and you see the look on Penelope's face when she's
Hmm.
like, oh, you'll get to run this whole estate. And she's like, that's literally the worst thing I could ever imagine
Yeah.
doing. And it's like, that look is like, do you even know me at all? Right? Like, you see the neglect that she really got. This conversation is like two strangers talking.
Hmm.
They act like they know each other, but they're both strangers. But then you have Violet and Colin talking. They're not even being direct. Like
Hmm.
Penelope and Portia have a very direct conversation,
Hmm.
and you can tell they don't know each other.
Yeah.
And like Penelope had no idea her mother was that
Well,
that social
I
climate
think
of a
there is a
person.
certain
Like she knew.
there's a certain age where you hit where you realize that your mother is not just your mother, but she's actually a fully functioning human outside of her
Mhm.
relationship with you, and you actually start to see them for both their good qualities and their bad.
Yeah. But I like Penelope is seeing her mother with eyes wide open for the first time.
Yeah.
Like she still doesn't know about the fraud that she was involved with Jack. She knows that Portia maneuvered that whole orangery thing so that Prudence could
Hmm.
marry Jack so she could manipulate Prudence because she was present for that
Hmm.
conversation. But now she's seeing just how social climby Portia is and how much power she wants, the kind of power she wants. Because Penelope talks about Whistledown being power, but influence, not power.
Yeah.
Portia wants power. Portia is
Yes.
like the Cowps. Like she wants to be the Cowpers or what the Cowpers appear to be. And Penelope's seeing that for the first time, but they're having a very direct conversation and you can tell they don't know each other at all. Where
Mm.
Colin and Violet are so close, and Violet is so close with her kids that they're having a conversation using parables and metaphors and not even having a direct conversation, not saying you love her, go get her, go put
Hmm.
your clothes on and go get your girl. It was not direct like that at all. It was
No.
all parable and metaphor, but he got the mess.
Yeah. Whereas
They
Pen
they
is
were
the
yeah.
complete opposite. She's listing off, oh, yes, I do like my space, and all the
Mm-hmm.
reasons that she's listing for why he'd make a good match. None of it is about his wealth in the
Money.
slightest.
Mm-mm.
None of it is about his money. It's about basically that she'd be able to exist as she does now,
Mm-hmm.
away from her mother, and still be
Mm-hmm.
able to do her Lady Whistledown. It's all about like an a career move, but nothing to do with her as a
Well, and I think
person.
it's when you're in the right relationship, it forces you to grow.
Yeah.
That person, and we're gonna get into gardening metaphors again. That person waters you, gives you food. They
Mhm.
they with encouragement and whatever, but they also
Fertilize and
call you out on your crap,
they do the weeding.
right?
They do the
They do
weeding.
the weeding. They pull out the stuff that maybe isn't serving you and you don't see that. You
Yeah.
would leave it there.
Yeah.
You would leave it there.
And it's going to strangle your
And
crops.
yeah, and as a person who was planted in the wrong garden for quite a number of years, you really do start feeling encroached upon by all these other plants that are just evasive. I'm going to
Hmm.
take over the place. But those plants aren't helping you at all. They're sapping the soil of all of the nutrients you need. They're covering you up, taking all the water. Like
It is not a symbiotic relationship.
no.
It is a parasite.
He was very much like he's those
Hmm.
aphids. That's what he was
You know what?
aphids.
I've had so many issues with aphids lately. They are
I know
doing my
that's what
head
made me
in.
think of it because you were telling me you were having issues.
They're killing my
But
brassicas.
he left me with holes, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
have if you have the right person, or a person that there's genuine love there, you're gonna do the things. Like if somebody has a disability, or and I'm going to give the example of my son here because I was able to come to be diagnosed with ADHD because I started studying ADHD because my son had it, right? And I'm like, oh wait, that sounds familiar. Oh wait, that sounds familiar. Oh wait, that sounds
Yeah.
like when you love somebody, truly love them, and you want to be a better person for them so that you can help them live the best life they can live,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to do the thing. And Penelope, the whole thing she's talking about is to just have the life she currently has, but not have to be in the purview, in the surroundings of her siblings and her mother. And here she's also hearing, not only is she hearing that this estate is vast and she's going to have a lot of work to do, which means less writing because she wanted this life so she could continue Whistledown, but she's not going to have time for it. She's also hearing that her mother plans on coming along. She's like, I was trying to get away from you.
Well, the part that I find quite interesting in this part is, Penelope's listing all the reasons, like trying to convince herself that he is a good match and she's making the right decision.
Yeah.
She is literally, this isn't even a conversation with Portia.
She's talking to
She's
herself.
talking
Yeah.
to herself. And Portia senses her submission and asks, what more could you want? Penelope immediately looks down. I don't know whether it's out of shame, as if like I don't want that life, that life that you told me that I'm supposed to want my entire life. I have no interest in that, or whether it's just an unwillingness to let her mother see herself and her true feelings. But either way, Portia questioned, please do not tell me you are holding out for love. And it's like she says it in the most mocking tone, as if like that is the most ridiculous notion that she has ever heard, that one would throw away, money and power and wealth and, all the rest of it for love. Like,
yeah, and yeah, she mocks her, and
she
Penelope knew
mocks.
she was going to get mocked. That is why she looked down and picked at the arm of the chair.
This is Colin's Mondrick's Bar douche squad moment. This is Penelope's moment of the same thing, being mocked for having true
Those
feelings.
feelings, yeah. But I also think this plays into the conversation with Violet and Colin, and the fact that, I mean, even though she's talking about armor and don't leave it on too long, and you're sensitive, I'm proud of your sensitivity. That's that moment for them. Like something he's ashamed of because he's been mocked for it. She's telling him, she's encouraging it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it, but I don't want you, like, there's got to come a point in time where you go after what you want and you put yourself first.
Yes.
If you put yourself first, I bet you're going to find that there's probably more there than you're thinking is there. Like she's having a whole conversation without having that conversation, and she's encouraging him where Portia is mocking, and they're both using that to get their outcome. And I'm not saying that Violet's being manipulative at all. She's being persuasive. There's a very fine line between persuasive and manipulative, but Violet I see as persuasive because she sees, and I also think because they both,
she's
I think,
not trying to tell her child what she to do. She is trying to guide her child to where he's going to find happiness, not her idea of happiness, but what she can see that he desires but won't go after for whatever reason.
And this is the reason I said I was going to bring in the study conversation, because in the study, both what the mothers have in common is that they have both lost sight of this child for quite some time.
Yeah.
Like Violet even admitted it in season 1 that she did not see this coming. And he's more solemn and serious than she'd ever seen him, that she had assumed he was too young and that he would realize it. And she didn't have to worry about him for a few years. And here it's a few years later, like she said, I wouldn't have to worry about you for a few years, but here's a few years later and she still didn't clock it. Like she, in the moment in the study, she's like from the night before, she's like,
and all
oh
of a
my
sudden
gosh,
your kids are grown up.
My little boy is a man and he's in love. And in that moment with the conversation after the proposal, when Portia says, oh, don't tell me that you're holding out for love. That's the moment she realizes, and it's in a negative way, but that she screwed up, that she had not been paying enough attention to Penelope, and it allowed Penelope's dreamy side and her sensitive side to win over the pragmatic side.
Yeah.
And both of these mothers in those moments felt like they failed, but that's where they're similar, is the fact that they were so focused on something else, which, I mean, Violet's got a million kids. So it's kind of like you're going to lose sight of. I wouldn't want to take 7 kids out in public. I mean, honest, 8 kids once you have the baby, you know,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to take 8 kids out in public and corral them all. You're going to have a kid that ends up getting left at the ice cream parlor. And it was probably Colin.
Or Home Alone
Let's be
for
real.
Christmas.
Right. If we want to be holidays, like
Kevin!
She just pops up in a
oh my
carriage,
God.
like they're driving out. She's like, Colin, we left Colin at home.
And the thing that I sent you the other day of like realizing she is 3 years older than me. So like when we watch this as children, it's like, come on, woman, like you're a fully fledged adult. Get your shit together. Like, how could you forget a whole child? And now being that age and realizing I don't feel like a fully fledged adult. I still feel young. I still feel like a kid in a lot of regards. Like, yes, I can go out and I can do my taxes and I can do all this and that. I still like watching anime and cartoons and kids movies. Like, I don't feel like a fully fledged adult.
I just said that on a post. I think it was a TikTok or something, because somebody said like literally there is a congresswoman who hasn't voted in 6 months. She hasn't been to work in 6 months, and a reporter went to find her and found her in an assisted living facility for memory care. She has dementia. She is still a congresswoman, but she has dementia. And I had commented, I like, what is our affinity as a country for voting for, people who in real life, in the regular world, they would have been retired for 15, 20 years by now. And I was like, well, the thing is that, our generation, we were grown-ups way too soon, and we were having to do things at a time when we should have never had to be that responsible. And we never got a chance to grow into that and to learn from anyone. So we always are looking for more mature, parental person in the room, because we don't feel like a grown-up. Yeah. And that is why my generation mostly, I think, is voting for really old people, because we remember our grandparents. And when you're like 7, 8, 9, your grandparent looks like they're 110.
Yes.
So, like I remember being 15 years old saying a 40-something-year-old person was old. And now I'm 48 and I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. I don't even say like people in their 60s or 70s are old to me anymore. I learned that lesson.
Well, especially in my family, when my family all lived to be in their mid 90s. So to me, like my parents who are 62 and 65, they are not old, because like they're just like, they're like 2/3 done.
But what I'm saying, like even a lot of millennial, and that's the generation it really started, where grandparents were raising their kids. Like my mom had my niece and nephew for like 5 years. So there's definitely that between Gen X and millennials in the US, where we were the grown up in the room was an elderly person. So we're voting in elderly people because we view that as smart and responsible and whatever. So I think that's what I love about this season too, is that you can definitely see what kid.
If you want to do this in one episode, we need to gallop back to the point, because we're at...
Well, I'm galloping. That's where I'm at. Like right now, I think we have 2 kids they're between kid and adult. They're looking more mature, and they're making these mature decisions, but they're still looking to the adult in their lives for some guidance and some support. And you can see the different forms of support they're getting. So it really gives you a picture
I think Penelope's really
of why Penelope is the way she is.
I don't think she ever goes to her mother for guidance. I think she knows that she is lost and she needs guidance, but I don't think she ever wants to turn to her mother.
No, her mother's shoving it down her throat.
Even Eloise, she really struggled. She could never be truly honest with her. So like, I think she had Violet for guidance for a lot of the part, and I think she had Varley.
I think she used Violet. I don't think she ever went to Violet I don't think she actually approached Violet for advice or anything.
I think Violet would say, oh, you look a little forlorn today. Is there anything on your mind? And she'd say, oh, well, no. I'm just...
I think she would purposely...
It would always be done in roundabout. They would never talk about what the actual was. It would always be in these like vague statements.
And you see how much Penelope and Eloise spend their time in the drawing room. And I think that's partially because there could be a Colin sighting. But I also think it's because if her and Eloise are talking about something, Violet will interject. Violet would be there to give her opinion, and Penelope would get sage adult motherly type advice without having to ask for it and without having to feel like she's betraying her relationship with her mother.
Well, so when you were talking before about the statement about Violet talking about how sensitive Colin is, and like he's looking away for the most part because this is like sensitivity is something that brings him shame because look what
He's been
happens when
mocked
he
for it.
when he showed his sensitivity to the dude squad, the douche squad, he was mocked for it. And so when she's talking about him being so sensitive, he's like, oh, maybe I am really the sensitive. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Like that both the douche
Oh my
squad and my
gosh, my
mum and I
mom
bringing up.
saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he is avoiding her gaze. But when she then explains that sensitivity and how it lifts up and brightens the lives of those around him, and often at the detriment to himself, he then realizes this isn't a bad quality to have. And my mum truly sees me, and she sees the motivations of why I do things because I want to
Mm-hmm.
help others. I love people, you know, like Benedict. I genuinely love people, and I want to help, and I want them to feel their best and be their best that they can be. And so he puts himself second. And I think that when she says this, I think this is the moment where he's thinking about that Walter Dundas kind of letter and thinking, I know that letting her marry Debling is going
Would
to be
solve
what's
everything for
best.
them.
It's going to be what's best for her. And so he knows that he is putting himself second to help her. And I think that's exactly what he is thinking about even before
And do you honestly think that a letter like that would be in Violet's house and she
without
would
her
not have
knowing.
seen it?
Hmm.
That's why I think her whole thing is you always put other people first, and that can be very lonely and whatever, because she knows that he's made the decision that Penelope is about to be in a better place, in a better situation for herself, but also for her family. So Violet has to come in with that's not what's important to Penelope.
No, and that's what she's saying. Like she's saying, like, do not let the armor rust because this will become who you are permanently, and you will regret it
Mm-hmm.
whether you end up with Penelope or not. You won't
But
like
I
yourself at
think,
the end of the day.
like, when he starts going upstairs and she said, it's such a shame that you are going to miss
Well,
Penelope's engagement. And I
even
think the reason she brings that up then, because she knows, I think she knows exactly what Marina was. I think she knows it was a stick it to Antony, but try and keep Penn in his drawing room forever because he knew he was going to lose her as a
mhm,
friend or whatever. Like, whatever his feelings were, I'm going to give it to the whole world. Like, some of us believe me that he's loved her from the beginning, but
mhm.
some people believe that he didn't have any clue what his feelings were, but he knew he didn't want to lose her in any capacity. So he impulsively decided to court her cousin because, hey, it's a pretty girl and I got to marry somebody anyway, but at least I'll have Penelope in my drawing room as often as I want because they're family. And I think Violet knew all that, and that he, even in that situation, it was misguided because he was putting Marina and Penelope and what they would want first instead of maybe just going to Penn and saying, "Hey, do you want to get married? I don't
Well,
want to lose you."
and I wonder whether
He
it's
he
also
found a
that
roundabout.
he talks about marrying Marina as in like she sees me and sees me truly, and then his mother's like, but this isn't who you truly are. And I think that's kind of like what she was pointing out, like
Well,
Penelope is who you truly are, like who you are
yeah,
with
I mean,
Penelope.
he didn't really say Marina sees me. He says Marina treats me
Yeah,
like he wanted to be treated like a grown up, and he felt like Marina treated him like a grown up. And but he truly just wants to be seen. He wants to be
yeah,
seen and heard.
yeah.
And I think Violet is like, you're about to miss out on the one
I think
person
it's
that does see you.
I think it's one of those moments where because you want something so bad, you fabricate that they are those things in your mind, but then you realize that
Mm-hmm.
you are just applying your own feelings onto them and they're not actually genuinely coming from that
Quit calling
person.
me out, Tosh.
I wasn't calling.
I just said that today to my son. I played a song and he goes, "Oh, you in this song." I was like, "Okay, I've turned this song into something it does not mean. Let's not even talk about it."
Let's not even talk about it. But
Like, I
Colin
know what I'm doing with my Pisces dreamy brain. Okay, I know.
Colin looks pained, but excuses it on him being hungover, but apologizes for lashing out at her and tells her that he
Mm-hmm.
wishes to rest this evening. And Violet,
Best
I
phrase
love,
for a hangover ever, and I will use it someday. I will be bottle weary. I promise you.
but I love that Violet kind of like tricks him here and she's like, Carry on. Lets him get a few steps up. Like, just lets him
Mm-hmm.
think that he's getting away with it before
Lets
she's
him
like,
think he won for a minute.
oh.
Yeah. But the reason I love this so much too, and like I was saying before with Marina, she knows he knows now at this point that Marina was fast. She had brought up that Marina was fast before, like that whole situation happened so
Was she
quickly.
wearing red running shoes?
Not runaway bride fast, but just things like chaos Colin fast, like he
Yeah.
wasn't thinking ahead.
Yeah.
And the thing that would make him realize that Penelope was not going into this for love, and he knows Penelope and he knows she deserves love, is the fact that this is happening so fast. And then she says the thing that makes it the most important thing, that this is not what Penelope wants. She says, Portia Featherington can't stop telling anyone who will listen.
Yes.
And that tells him Penn's doing this. Penn is also like kind of puts people first. She's doing this for her family. This is a family obligation. And that's how he like thinks it through. And he's saving her from a crummy marriage, because he literally comes out of it like he saved
when
her.
he says the words, that was rather quick. He almost sounds breathless. Like the words that his mum just dropped on him were like a physical, visceral, like punch to the
like
gut.
He got punched in the gut.
Yeah. And he's like,
that was rather quick.
That was rather quick. Like he's really breathy, and he's like, you know when that like.
But to me, that's his realization. That's his realization, and that's his excitement. Like
I kind of
she's doing this fast. Like that's not love. That's not Penn. That's not.
I wish that they kind of did the cinematography the similar to how they do to show Penelope's anxiety. I wish they kind of did that spinny, like his head is, how do I process all this? I need to process all of these feelings. Do I go and stop this? Her family needs this for the security from Walter Dundas. Like he's got a lot to consider in a very short amount of time.
Well, and that's why. Yeah, but that's why I love the fact that this appears to be the slowest Colin ever moves. Okay. Like everything else, like even Marina, he barreled in, right? As soon as he saw this whole idea play out, he barreled in. And then from the moment he got Penn in the carriage, I mean, that dude got a lot done in 24 hours. So
yeah, he did.
This is the slowest he ever moved. And I think he was slow for Penn. He wanted to think it through. He wanted to make sure that he felt justified that he was going, because he knew he potentially could ruin her reputation. If he ruined a proposal, if he broke a proposal,
I think that was why he was so adamant. Did he propose? And that was rather quick. He knows that if if Dublin actually proposes and he has to break that proposal, both the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons have had just one too many scandals at this point. And I think that if there were to be another, that would just be the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know that they could have bounced back from it.
I mean, there's a lot to consider, and we see him consider. And you and I have talked in previous episodes and in our group chat a lot about, I just started my car, by the way, that
you're getting it warmed up.
Yeah. That these balls, like they start around 6 or 7 at night and they go till midnight, 2 in the morning. So he literally sat there for hours in the study. And what sets him off, what gets him to take action, is the memory of her helping him with his cut on his hand, and the connection he felt, the look they shared, and the fact that when he pulled her fingers in, she did not she continued and maintained and kept the connection, right? In fact, she was trying to deepen the connection by saying his writing was good. Like she felt on such a level of intimacy with him in that moment that she believed she could bring up his writing, and he's thinking about all of that. He wasn't thinking about her assets. Yeah. He wasn't thinking, that was all the connection. Yeah. And he realized he's in that moment, he had hope. He's like, she loves me, maybe, and she's about to marry someone she doesn't love for her family. I can't let her do that.
Yeah. Well, and this is where, he's walking up the steps and see he's a really like mass onslaught of feelings and thoughts and processing,
Mhm. And
so
he does the same
much.
thing. He does the same thing. Like you brought up how Penelope, as soon as her mom said something about love, she looked down. She wouldn't make eye
Hmm.
contact. He does the same thing because when he walks up and he turns, he doesn't fully turn and look at his mom.
No.
It's like he aims his ear at her. Like, what you
Yes.
say? Like he's looking off to the side,
He's
and you know his
defensive.
brain
Yeah.
is, yeah, his brain is doing all the things, but he just can't look his mom in the eye
And
because he
then
knows if he does, he will be giving himself away.
and then she gives the subtle, I do hope you feel better with a
Mm-hmm.
smile, and then departs. But I know, we all know exactly what she means. The only way that you are going to feel
Mm-hmm.
better is if you shoot your shot with Penelope. There is
Yeah.
nothing else in this world that is going to make you feel better than
Mm-hmm.
rectifying what you have done. Because realistically, he has done this. He allowed this whole thing to transpire. And she is like, you loved her and you let her do this. You have created
Mm-hmm.
the path of your own destruction. So either you go and fix it, or you are not going to feel better
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah, because when has Crafty Colin ever worked in his favor? Crafty Colin got blown up in his face with Marina. And here he's trying to do Crafty Colin like, I'm going to teach you how to be charming. But
Mhm.
really, I just want to date you in
Like
private. And
Violet
yeah.
100% has a way of corralling her children without explicitly telling them what to do. Like they know
Oh,
exactly
and
what it is that she is getting at and implying, but she just is like, this is an
uh-huh.
option.
And another juxtaposition of the mamas. What happened when the news broke and it was in Whistledown? So everybody knows it's true. And I mean, they found out at the ball. But what happens when Penelope's mom finds out that
Well, we're
she
gonna
was
put
alone with the dude?
We're going to put a pin in that one because we have three major points left to go on the Portia Penelope side. But I was, if you go pick up your son, we can just hit pause and continue this when you get back because otherwise, I think it's probably a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of content left.
Right. And I mean, all I want to say is Portia came to her room and just vilified her and railed on her. And how could you do this? You
Hmm.
put scandal on us. You're alone with somebody. And now think about how she was with Marina and that whole potential scandal and whatever. But she doesn't reproach or approach Colin at all
No.
about being alone with Penelope ever.
Well, no. So one of the funniest reacts from Portia Kieran, we've kind of talked about this a little bit in previous pods with like her reaction to Penelope wanting to read and things like that. Portia has the funniest reaction because she says, see, this is why I discouraged you from reading. Love is make-believe. It's only in your storybooks. And I laugh because I have been told the exact same thing.
Me too.
Stop reading romance books because they give you an unrealistic expectation of men and love. And I mean, to be fair, a little bit accurate, but it's not like we're actually applying
Uh,
those
to be
expectations to
fair,
life.
yeah, to be fair, there's a certain type of media that give men unrealistic expectations as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah, 1000%. There are a
I think
whole.
humans, yeah, I think that humans who create know their audience and they create the illusion that that audience wants and needs, and that's how they sell their media, their
Mm.
creation. So
Like they are 100% selling us this. And then I mean, I can see that like in books, when you get love bombed in books, it's genuine. It's this love bombing that hits and it's weird and wonderful and oh, I've waited my whole life for this and that. But in reality, when you get love bombed, it's because
it's a narcissist.
you're getting into a relationship with a narcissist. You're about to be cheated on. You're about to be secluded from your entire friends and family network, and you're about to
Mm-hmm.
have a real shit time.
You're
Thank you,
about to
books, for
be,
not.
yeah, look up in the dictionary coercive control.
Hmm.
like I mean, my whole, I can't say my whole relationship, but definitely at least 2/3 of it was small little micro moments of coercive control. And
Hmm.
you think that, and for me, the whole romance thing is not, because the type of men that I have interacted with, attracted, been attracted to, the issue always boils down to communication. Either it's somebody is purposely keeping something from me, or, you know, they're so closed off, they have walls up. So they're, you know, that hurdle is just communications. Like, I don't even know what I will do if I ever date a man who is completely direct and like open and freely, you know, honest and intimate. Like, if anybody truly Colin Bridgerton me, like how he just lays it all on the line in the carriage, I will be like, I would probably get the ick. And I didn't with you, Luke Newton. There was no ick in that carriage. But in real life, I would be like, this can't be real. I would not be able to believe it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's how Penn is. Like, if you look at Penn's face, she's like, this is not happening. But I mean,
this is the moment where Portia is basically saying, and this very much plays into, and I didn't pick the you thing. Portia explains that security is romantic, and that if Penelope will not be practical, that she will be for her. This is Portia saying, I don't care what you want. I'm the boss. You're the child. I get to decide your fate. You have no say in this.
It was her Anthony Bridgerton moment.
I'm going to pick for you. I'm picking Dabbling. Saddle up, girl, because this is your ride, you know? And then Colin comes along and he goes, fancy a carriage ride, me lady.
Well, and I think that in that moment, they communicate. There's something said with words, and there's something said with their hearts and their bodies, but there's a lot that they say to each other just with their eyes, and they're a little bit off page in the carriage, but they are on the same page. Like, from the moment
the moment they connect
through to him, he knew he had to announce it to his family before Anthony came, and he knew Anthony was coming the next day. That's why he exited the carriage and said, are you coming? And she knew, like, instantly she knew the plan, and she knew she had to write a whistle down, and she had to tell the world in whistle down to get around her mother. They both knew they had obstacles. And I think that, this is how we know who the obstacles are, because Violet is very encouraging, where Anthony has been very admonishing in the past when it comes to Colin. And Portia is not just admonishing, she's flat out mocking.
Yeah. And she's very much telling Penelope in this moment, if you want to be happy in the way that you want to be happy, you have to find a workaround around me. Colin has to find a workaround around Anthony. They both have to go out of the bounds of society to make this happen. And that's what they're willing to do.
And what's
this
funny
is a grand gesture.
Because I was very much told that, because I had too high of expectations of men. And there was, I mean, I very much specifically wanted one person for a majority of my life. And the people who loved me, and I will say it came with an intention of love. They didn't like seeing me suffer and hurt and whatever, because it wasn't coming to pass. That they were like, look, you need to lower your standards. This person is your person, but nothing's happening because, conditioned, like you were just saying, conditioned for marriage. Yeah. Marriage is the outcome you want, not just loving and having that.
We were conditioned to not compromise, but basically give up everything we want. We give up everything that we want to make someone else happy or to fit someone else's idea of easy. They didn't want compromise, because compromise means two people putting in work. They think that we should just push aside our own needs to make other people happy. And that's really, really toxic because it's not long-term sustainable. And I think that's why even now we're seeing these 50-year marriages split up, because they're like, I don't care if I wasted 50 years married to someone. I cannot waste a single second of my remaining life being stuck to that person.
And when I exited the dream of that one relationship, and I entered into the one that I
pragmatic
was supposed to have, was meant to have, and I'm doing quotes, people. The people that loved me watch me go through this, watch me lose more of myself, watch me have to erase myself for this person, but watch me stay and stay and stay and stay, because this is what I have been conditioned to believe that I was meant for, because if they stayed with me, they were meant for me. And
isn't it interesting?
But now these same people that I'm talking to, previous person, they're like, that was your person. That was, like, and I think a lot of people have to go through that whole.
We have to be able to look at ourselves.
Don't settle.
we have to be able to look us at ourselves at the end of the day and be okay with the choices that we've made and
Mm-hmm.
how those choices have affected the core of who we are. And this kind of plays into this moment because that night, our conversation with Portia, where Penelope is like, okay, I've made my bed, I have to lie in it. Well, Portia made my bed, so now I have to lie in it. Penelope is sat in front of the mirror inspecting herself, and you can see her physically looking like, can I be Penelope Debling? Can I give
Mm-hmm.
up on Colin and love? Can I still love Colin but be married to Debling? Like she is trying to see herself in this role and can't. She looks away from herself and she scrunches up her face because she cannot fathom seeing herself as Penelope Debling. She will not
Yes,
like
but
looking at herself.
what I love, the best thing about Penelope came from Portia, and that is when a situation goes awry, she is going to make the best of it. In
Yeah.
this case, like you see her be exactly like Portia. If you think back to when Portia chooses her daughters over Jack and
Hmm.
she tells Jack to leave and she turns away from him, and before she goes out to where the ton is, she does that quick, like she's putting on her armor and she does that really short, like
Yeah. Yeah.
breath. And Penelope does the same thing here. Like
Hmm.
she looks away from the mirror because she can't fathom what is about to occur, but she knows it has to be done, that
Hmm.
she's too far gone at this point. There's no turning back, and there's no Colin as far as she knows. So she turns back, she steals her stuff up, and she does that same, like when Ray goes, "Are you ready for me?" And she's like, "Yep." And she's like,
Yeah.
does that same
Yeah.
like stealing of herself. And that's when you really see that even though she's super romantic and dreamy and everything, she's very much like her mother in the fact that she will take care of business when it's
Yeah. And it's like when Colin comes around in the next scene and she's almost angry at him, at the ball when he interrupts because she's like, I have mourned my life with
I just
I've
wrapped my head
mourned
around this.
I've mourned this loss and now you're going to like put your hat back in the ring. I can't deal with that. I have already mourned it. I cannot have you giving me these tendrils of hope anymore. I've made my choice. I'm going to stick with that. I can't embarrass my family. I can't embarrass your family.
Well,
We have made this.
and I don't think she's saying you're trying to give me hope. I think she really did just see it as
Interference.
because Colin was her friend and because he was the only male
Yeah.
relative, because he is the brother of her best friend and
Hmm.
they are like have a sisterly relationship.
Yeah.
I think she thought he felt like he had that authority over her,
Authority. Yeah.
that he was making a choice, and she
Yeah.
already just dealt with her mother telling her it's not your choice, it's mine.
Yeah.
And now here comes Colin, and she's seeing him very much like Anthony in that moment.
Taking
Like,
away her choices.
I just did not think that when I asked you to help me find somebody, like you were literally going to also say ixnay with a hell no.
Yeah.
And I don't think she thought he was putting his hat in the ring.
Yeah.
I think she thought he was just trying to exert his toxic masculinity, like, no, this is not, I had
Yeah.
no say in this. You're not picking this guy. Yeah.
But yeah, I do definitely think that in this mirror, like she's like, okay, I've put it to rest. Like, not that she necessarily listens to her mum's advice, but I think she also understands at this point she has made her bed and she has to lie in it. She's out of options. This is the
Yeah.
choice, you know?
I think she went through all the thought processes and she came to that conclusion herself. I don't
Yeah.
think her mother's words had any effect on her whatsoever. I think she sat and she stared at herself. You could tell she'd been sitting there for a long
Hmm.
time, just like Colin sat in the study for a
Yeah.
long time. And I think she thought all the thoughts and she came to the conclusion like, this is too far gone. He's already proposed. My mom's announced it all over town that this is going to happen. I'm stuck.
I think
I
it's that
have to
moment
do
where
this.
you kind of disassociate and realize this is what I've got to do. I'm going to shut my feelings off. I'm going to feel nothing
Mm-hmm.
because if I feel anything at all, it is going to
Yeah.
crush me. So you can see her turn
And
her
she's
feelings off.
imagining what the ton would say if she turned him down at this point.
Yeah.
And the scandal, like she's already created scandal. I think her and Colin both, not on purpose, have caused scandal for their families, that
Hmm.
then they take that so much to heart that it
Yeah.
affects how they do things in the future. And they ended up almost not getting exactly what they wanted because they were so worried about creating and causing scandal
Yeah.
for their family. So I hope they cause a shit ton of scandal married. I
I
hope
hope
they're
the
just like
scandal is
scandal
them.
schmandal.
I hope the scandal is them sneaking off in little escapades together, unable to keep their hands off of each other.
Yeah, I saw a funny
A little stroke of a hand on a dance floor, a little stolen kiss here, a little squeezy
a
of a
squeezy
backside
squeeze.
there.
Like, yeah, I think they round a corner and there's a squeezy squeeze a few
Yes.
times. I because Colin always is taking her off into behind a big ass curtain or something.
For today, gentle listeners. On that note, for today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there with that thought in mind. A little squeezy
Squeezy
squeeze here,
squeeze.
a little strokey
Little
stroke there, and continue on next week's episode. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. Oh, and one side note, I also absolutely love the Christmas tree comparison to dresses that Anne shared this week. Brilliant post. And I love that she went through and made her own redo. I kind of want to do the
Mm-hmm.
same as well with
I love
our,
that she gave the sunflower tree to
yes,
Penelope because the
that,
original poster had made that for Marina.
yeah.
But I that gave me the idea
Mm-hmm.
because Marina was schemy. Yes, Portia pushed her, but she was just as schemy. And the fact that she wore yellow on the
Mm-hmm.
day of the proposal and it was pen yellow, it
Yes,
wasn't good
it
yellow,
was.
it was
Yeah,
Penelope yellow.
yeah,
That was important. She was using manipulation, and I think she clocked their feelings for each other, and
yes.
she was using that against him. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And so I was like, I absolutely love. Thank you, Anne. That was an absolute. When we talk about like, please share to the Bridgerton page. We love this kind of content that you
Yes.
add to it.
Loved it.
We love diving into it. It helps us come
And
up with those different
Claire,
theories.
yeah, Clary going to all the Bridgerton locations and stuff. I
Yes,
love that. Post away, post.
yes,
It's
please
a
do.
group, it's a group for a reason.
Yeah.
We
And
want the hive
we read
mind.
it all. Like, I mean, even if we're busy, we get around to it, we read it all, we love it all, we
Yeah.
discuss it between ourselves, we pull out little ideas from it, like the Marina wearing the Penelope yellow to try and entice Colin further. Like, you guys help inspire those theories with what you share. So if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening.
Thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women. And let's be clear, a whole mad Facebook group.
Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty.
Dun dun dun.